Hey guys, so let's talk about hold levels in this lesson, as I noticed that there was a lot of requests regarding hold levels in the forms that you guys filled out. So hopefully this lesson will help a lot of the beginners, intermediate, and also the advanced guys might find some information there useful. Okay, so please stick around till the end. So what are hold levels? Hold levels are support and resistance levels. They're capital injection points to open or close trades, right? We have two kinds. We have for support, we refer to them as hold levels, and they're marked on top of distribution candles, or something like this, right? Marked on top of distribution candle. You can mark the body as well, okay? But that's again for the future lessons as to when do we consider the body, when do we consider the wick, okay? But for right now, just let's keep it simple and let's mark the wicks. Okay, so this is a hold level. Again, ignore the fact that it says FS hold. It's a front side hold. Most of you guys already know the difference between backside and front side holds, but for now let's just call them holds. Okay, so this is an example of a support level, right? Now the inverse hold resistance on the other side would look something like this, right? Technically, I mean, it's kind of tested over here. I'll put this on the body because this wick over here, it's internally tested, which is a concept that we'll talk about in a few minutes, okay? But bear with me for one quick second, and just let's call this the inverse hold for right now, okay? Inverse hold, okay? Now, so it's marked at the bottom of accumulation candle, okay? Resistance is always marked at the bottom of accumulation candle, okay? Support is always marked at the top of distribution candle. Now, let's talk about the prerequisites of a hold level, okay? It has to be followed by a valley of the opposite color, okay? So, for instance, over here, as I told you guys, with support levels, we always mark the hold levels on the top of a distribution candle. So it has to be, the first prerequisite is it has to be followed by an accumulation candle valley, okay? You see this is a valley, correct? So we mark the top of distribution candle. It has to be followed by the opposite color valley, the accumulation candle valley. And what is a valley? A valley is basically two or more candles in a row of the same color. They're referred to as a valley, okay? And so in this case, it'll be green candles, right? Color is not important. You guys can paint them whatever color you want, right? But by green candles, obviously, I mean accumulation candles. Now, same thing over here. Just completely the opposite, right? So flip this upside down, right? The mirror image. Replace the accumulation with distribution and distribution with accumulation candles, right? So followed by the opposite color valley. So you see I marked the resistance is always marked at the bottom of accumulation candle, and it's followed by two or more. In this case we have a lot more, right? Could be two, could be three, could be up to 10, 20, whatever, you know. Minimum, requirement is two candles, right? So in other words, you can't have like one red candle and then green candle and then the bunch of other red candles. No, it has to be two candles in a row, and after that, if it happens to be a green candle, it's okay, right? It'll still be considered a valid hold. Okay, that's a first prerequisite. It has to be followed by the opposite color valley. Okay, what is the second prerequisite? A hard close confirmation above the level itself. Okay, or if it's a resistance, also referred to as inverse hold, it has to be below it, right? So as you guys already know from the previous lesson, what is a hard close? Hard close in this case will be a green candle close of the body above it, right? So in other words, this is the confirmation. This guy is the confirmation for this hold level to be a valid hold, okay? And for this, it will be this red candle will be the confirmation for this hold level to have become a hold level, right? So at what point do you officially call this a hole level, right? It's after the confirmation of a hard close below this, or after a confirmation of hard close above it, right? So, and what is the third prerequisite? There should be no internal testing. Okay, the wick of the candle should not be testing the level before having the hard close. Okay, so let's take an example of that same example that I told you guys in the beginning, right? So something like this. This could not be, even though it found rejection over here, but that's for a completely different reason. Could be a whole level on another time frame, but on this time frame, it's not a whole level. It's not a valid whole level, right? So something like this is not a valid hold, because you see the confirmation is this guy right here, correct? Now, this confirmation did not happen before the wicking happened. They both happened at the same time on the same candle. That should not be the case. The confirmation, which is the hard close, needs to be without that level getting touched, right? So let's take another example, something like this, right? And that obviously is support, right? Support, I'm marking them with green color, right? So hold. So something like this, I'll just cut this with the replay tool so there's no confusion, right? Something like this, do you see how it's internally tested? So it got tested, it got wicked before the hard close, okay? Now there's another important point that I want you guys to pay attention to, okay? Imagine if this wick, this entire wick, were not there, and it replaced this with a body, okay? I'll actually draw the diagram for you guys. It might be actually better for you guys to see what I'm talking about. So imagine this is a level, okay? And then we have a, so this is, it's marked on, it's a support level, so it has to be red color, correct? And right here. So this has to be followed by green candles, right? So one green candle and then another green candle. Now if it looked something like this, right, we know that it is a hold without a doubt. However, if we had a wick sticking out like, oops, yeah, trading view is gonna be pain in the ass with this one. Let me actually draw it over here, and then let me actually, because I drew this candle a bit thin, maybe that's why it won't allow me to do that. So let me copy this, put this over here, and let me put this wick right below it. Yeah, if it's something like this, you guys know this is internally tested, right? But what if this body were over here? Would we refer to this as a valid hold? The answer is yes. Even if a small portion of the body, even if it looks something like this, right? If it is below the hold itself, it will be referred to as a valid hold, as long as the third candle after this, or it could be fourth, could be fifth, and even if it has a red candle here in the middle, doesn't matter. The hard close can happen anywhere after the valley itself, okay? So imagine there's a red candle over here, and then eventually at some point right above the level we have a green candle, which is the hard close confirmation. Even at this point we will refer to this as a hold. So at this point technically it's not a hold, but it also has not been invalidated. You cannot say it will not be a whole level in the future. It could be a whole level in the future, but the moment you have the entire body sort of like hard closing above the level itself and wicking it, that's when you will actually disqualify this level from being a whole level, a potential whole level. Okay? At this point, we're not waiting for the confirmation above this for a hard close. It just doesn't matter. You can have as many green candles as you want above it. But with this, we have disqualified this whole level. Okay? So hopefully this is clear, and the exact same opposite would be the case for the inverse hold, right? So now the next thing I want you guys to pay attention to is types of hold levels. Okay, so there are two types, as you guys might know. BS holds, which have bigger bounces, and they're usually referred to as knife catches, right? And FS hold, they're usually the greediest pieces, and they're sitting at the bottom of the valley. Okay, and they have slow movement. Okay, if that breaks, then the entire range collapses. Okay, let's take a couple of examples of BS versus FS. Okay, so for FS hold, this, you see, this is the last piece, right? BS hold would be something like this. For BS hold, they're in the back registry. Okay, do you see how this is in the back registry? It's further to the left, right? So the FS hold is always connected right next to the start of the valley. Okay, the BS hold, they are not right next to the valley. You see how this is like in the back registry towards the left side, and this is right connected right next to the valley, the beginning of the valley itself, right? So this will be referred to as the BS hold. Now this upper level, if this holds, this will have a big bounce, as most of you guys might already know this, right? But maybe the beginners may not know this. So the BS hold, they have bigger bounces. That's why we also refer to them as knife catch levels. They're risky, especially when it comes to leverage trading. We usually tend not to take these, especially if they're too far away from the front side. Okay, and because you have such big ways for this move to come down and probably touch this, right? This is much better in terms of leverage trading, right? And the FS hold, they usually have like slow movement. Okay, but this one will have bigger bounce, right? I should have actually used this other tool. So this will have a big move, and this will have a slow movement. And of course, if this FS hold doesn't move, if it doesn't hold, then the entire range will collapse. Okay. Same thing with the inverse holds. Let's quickly take a look at the inverse holds over here, right? So in this example, we have, let's go a little bit forward. Yeah, there you go. Oops. Yeah, right there. So in this example, we have several hold levels. We have two back sides, okay, and one front side. Okay. Here I have it marked on the body, but you could just mark it on the wick. Since I mentioned we will mark it on the wick to keep things simpler. Okay. So again, for this backside, what is a confirmation? It meets all of its prerequisites, right? A little bit of the body is sticking out, so it's fine. Okay, and this is the confirmation for this backside. This guy's a confirmation for this front side. Also, you have this guy as a confirmation, right? And that's about it. So that's it for this lesson, and hopefully that helped.